What jobs should require a license to practice? For me, I'd say jobs where if you screw up, unwanted body fluids and/or electricity shoot out of you. Stuff like this. Yeah. Some of my colleagues at Reason go a step further and believe nobody should have to obtain the permission of the government in order to work for a living. They're all about freedom until somebody tries to move into an air vent to save on rent money.
Andrew Kardashian Heaton, you get out of there right now.
I'm not bothering anyone.
And a lot of people are a touch more moderate than both of us. They say we ought to license jobs which require specialized knowledge and entail high risk to the consumer. Like attorneys, for example. You don't want to be represented in court by your friend whose legal training consists of watching Matlock.
Objection, Your Honor. I invoke prima nocta.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So far, that's 3 approaches to licensing. My crazy anarchist colleagues who want no licensing and won't let me live in an air vent.
I'm not in the air vent.
Cowards who want to license anything important. And me, the sane, handsome guy who thinks we should only license professions which, if somebody screws up, cause unwanted body fluids and/or electricity to shoot out, just as our founders set forth in the Federalist Papers. Unwanted.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
3/5. The bad news is, none of those options are where we are as a country, because it turns out there's a 4th option. Corruption and petty bullshit. That happens when some profession, which the vast majority of people would agree should not require a license, somehow, inexplicably, requires a license. I say inexplicable, but it's actually pretty splicable. And that splick is, practitioners decide to erect fees, classes, and administrative barriers to protect themselves from new competition. And the government goes along with it because it collects those fees. For example, I used to be a tour guide in Washington, D.C., for which I had to obtain a license. It was against the law for me to tell people historical facts about our nation's capital without first paying a fee to the city and filling out a stupid test, at least 3 questions of which pertain to the Octagon House, which you haven't heard of because nobody cares about the Octagon House. Anyway, if I messed up facts, nobody would explode. The worst thing that ever happened is I ruined a couple of marriages. There are lots of jobs which are licensed but don't really need a license. Florida and Louisiana, both legitimate states, require licenses for interior design. I'm going to say that one more time. Interior design, not the architects. Do you understand what I'm saying? Interior design. You have to be really, really bad at interior design to make a room explode. Okay, one time a room I decorated did start shooting out body fluids, but that had more to do with the fact that the house was built on top of an old Indian burial ground. I don't know why Hindu ghosts hate developers, but they do. In Massachusetts, you need a license to become a fortune teller. Hillsborough County, Florida requires a permit to work as a psychic or tarot card reader. You know, to protect people from fake psychics. Many states require hair braiders to get a license, entailing 1,000 hours of cosmetology school. That makes sense if you're afraid unlicensed hair people are gonna kill Brits and serve them as meat pies in a 4-star Broadway musical. But you know what? I don't think that's the point. The point is to erect a barrier to entry in order to protect incumbents from new competitions. Fees, classes, and tests. Death by 1,000 cuts. Cuts? Like in that Broadway musical I slept through, Starlight Express. Other times, it's not about barriers to entry, it's about extortion. In 2020, the New York legislature debated making a new license specifically for shampoo assistants, who are the people that wash your hair when you get a haircut. The proposal included 500 hours of training at a state-certified cosmetology school, which would cost around $13,000 in tuition to wash hair. Guess who was the biggest proponent of that? Beauty schools. $13,000? For that much money, I could put on my own musical.
Somebody get me some body fluids for my tongue.
Here are some other jobs which require a license, even though it's highly, highly unlikely unwanted body fluids or electricity would shoot out of you if the person you hired sucked at it. Yeah. You may have noticed taxidermist was in there. You have to get a license to practice taxidermy in 28 states. The worst case with a taxidermist, the worst case, is you screw up and bring a deer back to life, which would make you a pretty good veterinarian. Or how about this, auctioneer? If an auctioneer doesn't talk fast enough, what happens?
500. 501. 502.
Wrong! That wasn't because of the auctioneer, it was a suicide bomber. Now at this point, You might be thinking, what's the big deal? So a couple of jobs require more paperwork, and clairvoyants in Florida slop out $3,000 for a bullshit psychic permit. Big whoop. I don't live in an air vent. Occupational licensing is massive. Around 20% of American workers must hold a professional license to do their job. Significantly more workers are subject to occupational licensing than the minimum wage. There are more people who must obtain licensing than hold memberships in private and public unions combined. Unnecessary licenses make it harder for people to obtain gainful employment, and they limit mobility by making it difficult to move and work across state lines, even Delaware. The Institute for Justice, or IDGE, calculated that lower-income occupational licensing requires, on average, nearly a year of educational experience, one exam, and more than $260 in fees. Some states require up to 2,100 hours of cosmetology training to work in a salon. That's 87 straight days, nearly the entire length of Megalopolis. And licenses raise prices on consumers, too, like me. Economists estimate that licensing reduces the number of providers in a profession by 17 to 27%. By restricting supply and suppressing competition, prices go up, usually around 10%. That works out to billions of dollars of dead weight loss. That's money we could be spending on stuffed animals. No? Stuffed animals. Yeah, like that. You can't unsee that, can you? Yeah, welcome to hell. But it actually gets more insidious. It's not just that barbers or hair braiders or florists or floristants or halberd-dressers use the state to limit competition. They're also pretty bad at regulating themselves. Even professions which most of us think ought to be licensed. The idea behind occupational licensing boards is that people in a given profession know that profession best, so they're the best folks to regulate it. Okay, hence the Medical Licensing Board will mostly be full of doctors, the American Bar Association is mostly attorneys, and the Taxidermy Licensing Board is presumably full of bearded men who enjoy shoving sawdust into dead bears. But that's an immediate glaring conflict of interest. And, turns out, doctors don't like punishing fellow doctors. Attorneys don't want to unlawyer fellow Matlocks. And taxidermists don't want to stop their fellow bearded dudes who own Plaid and Microbrew from shoving sawdust up the ass of a dead bear for money. Occupational licensing boards are not terribly good at actually improving the quality of professions or weeding out bad actors. In 2015, the Obama administration concluded that most research does not find that licensing improves quality or public health and safety. What occupational licensing boards primarily do is prosecute people for operating without a license. So what do? First, most jobs don't need a license. Insofar as quality control goes, online reviews, market forces, and professional certifications, as opposed to government licenses, can handle things without the law getting involved. How about this? Every 10 years, any existent licensing board has to go to its respective state legislature and make the case that the license should continue. Then the legislature can yay or nay it. Or, in Kentucky, yay, nay, or trial by combat. Next, if a profession actually needs a licensing board, we shouldn't let volunteers from the profession who benefit from licensing be the ones in charge of it. Right now, we basically have a medieval guild system in which professions govern themselves but wield the power of the state to enforce their rulings on everybody else. I hate three things in life: megalopolis, humidity, and bureaucrats. But even I would rather have government employees sit on licensing boards than institutionalize a conflict of interest. Finally, states should champion reciprocity wherever they can. It's not a sex thing, it's a legal thing. The Nurse Licensure Compact allows nurses in more than 30 states to practice in other states that are compact members. We should do more of that kind of thing, and the sex thing. Are you licensed to perform brain surgery in Montana? Terrific. You can now cut open people's heads and pull out demons and shit in West Dakota or whatever. Are you licensed in electricity? You know, like an electrician in Kansas? Well, you can trap lightning in Oklahoma and put it in jars and piss it off. I don't know how it works, but what I do know is licensing should be necessary, targeted, and competently administered, not used as a way to ward off competition. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to buy that weird-ass taxidermy Jim Henson nightmare fuel thing.